She heard the drums beat. At first she only watched. As the music called to her, no one noticed her standing. The drumming grew louder, and the rhythm faster. She could not hold herself any longer. She decided to step out, and before she could stop herself, she began to dance. But soon one by one heads turned, fingers pointed, and whispers spread. There comes the laughter. The ground is shaking beneath her, someone said. She dances like a buffalo, another voice shouted. The laughter grew louder, stabbing her like sharp knives. Her body, once light with joy, became heavy with shame. Tears filled her eyes as she turned and ran, pushing and passing the crowd. She passed the palace gates running until she found herself deep in the forest, in the great kingdom of Amunzi, where drums echoed through the hills. With song and dancing, they people celebrate life. There lived a princess named Adara. She was the only child of King Obina and Queen Amaka. But unlike the slender and graceful maidens of the land, her steps heavy. Her size made her the subject of whispers and cruel laughter. Whenever she passed, mothers warned their daughters not to become like her, and fathers shook their heads when they spoke of her future. They often said, for she had a gift, a love for dance. Her feet tapped, her arms swayed, dancing as if the world around her did not exist. Who will marry a woman as big as that, men will say. But Adara did not let their words break her spirit. Whenever she heard the beat of a drum, her body moved on its own, and she would lose herself in the rhythm of the dance. It was the one thing that made her feel truly free. One fateful evening, as they celebrate the new yam festival, the entire village gathered in the palace square to celebrate. Yam and spicy pepper soup filled the air, the sound of laughter and joy filling every corner, their bodies moving in perfect harmony with the drums as they dance. Adara wanted to be among them, as she stood by the window watching, but her heart is full of fear. Ignoring the fear in her heart, pounding with longing, to feel the earth beneath her feet, to dance without a care, she slipped out of the palace and hid behind the trees at the edge of the square. At first she only watched. The music called to her. No one noticed her. The drumming grew louder, the rhythm faster. She stepped out, and before she could stop herself, she began to dance. But soon, one by one, heads turned to her direction as they point fingers at her and whisper, "There comes the laughter. The ground is shaking beneath her," someone said. She dances like a buffalo, another voice shouted. The laughter grew louder, stabbing her like sharp knives. Her body, once light with joy, became heavy with shame. Tears filled her eyes as she turned and ran, pushing and passing the crowd. She passed the palace gates running until she found herself in the forest, collapsing onto the grass, crying through her tears. She heard the sound of a drum, soft, steady, and comforting. She lifted her head and saw a man standing before her holding a small drum. He was tall, his dark skin glowing in the moonlight, his eyes warm and kind. "Why do you cry, beautiful one?" he asked. She turned away. "I am not beautiful," she said. He smiled. "I saw you dance. You move like the river when it flows, like the wind when it sings. Do not let the words of fools steal your joy." She looked at him, surprised. You do not mock me." "No," he said, beating his drum gently. "Dance for me." Hesitant at first, she slowly rose to her feet as she began to dance, pouring her heart into every step. When she finally stopped, breathless and glistening with sweat, the man clapped. "You are a gift to this world," he said. His name was Obina, a traveler from a distant land. Every night, he returned to the forest, playing his drum while she danced. As time went by, their bond deepened, and love bloomed between them. After 5 months, Obina took her hand. "Marry me," he said. Tears of joy filled her eyes. "Yes, yes, I will." But fate had other plans. A terrible plague swept through Munzi, bringing fever, boils, and death. The king ordered a lockdown, sealing the kingdom from the outside world. On the other hand, Obina prayed every day, wishing Adara is okay, and hoped to see her after the plague to fulfill his promise to her. As days passed, Adara fell sick. For weeks, she lay in bed, her body burning with fever, her mother always by her side praying and taking care of her. Slowly she recovered, but the sickness had changed her. The weight that once covered her body was gone. She was slim, her curves soft and delicate, her skin glowing like the morning sun. When she stepped outside, the villagers gasped in shock. "The princess is beautiful," they whispered, and for the first time in her life, Adara felt truly seen. With the plague gone, Obina returned to fulfill his promise, but Adara had changed. She no longer saw him as the kind drummer who had loved her when no one else did. She saw only a poor traveler, unworthy of a princess. "You are not of my class," she said coldly. "I deserve someone better." His eyes darkened with pain. "But I love you. I have always loved you." She turned away. "Leave. I will find a husband more suited for me." To prove her worth, she announced a grand wrestling contest. Whoever wins will be my husband, she declared. Rich men and warriors from far and wide came to compete. For weeks, she focused on her beauty, eating lavishly, dressing in the finest clothes. She bathed less, believing perfumes were enough. The once vibrant Adara became vain, obsessed with her appearance. On the day of the contest, she stepped out proudly, expecting admiration, but gasps of horror filled the air. Her body had changed again, her beauty lost to gluttony, her skin dull, her scent unpleasant. One by one, the suitors walked away. Humiliation crushed her. She turned to flee and saw Obina standing at the edge of the crowd. But he was not the man she had once known. He wore royal robes, his head held high. Confused, she ran to him. "Why are you dressed like this?" she asked. He looked at her with sadness. "Because I am a prince," he said. "I came to Amunzi in disguise, searching for a woman who would love me for who I am, not for my crown." Her heart stopped. "A prince?" "Yes. And I chose you. But you failed me, Adara." Tears streamed down her face. "I was foolish. Please, forgive me." But he only smiled. "I wish you happiness," he said. And then he turned and walked away. The humiliation was too much. She locked herself in her chambers, refusing to eat, to see anyone. The king, angry and ashamed of her behavior, made a decision. "You have disgraced this family," he said. "No young man will have you now. I have arranged a husband for you." Her heart pounded in fear. "Who?" "Chief Okik, the old trader from Quo village. He is wealthy and needs a seventh wife. You will marry him at once." Adara fell to her knees. "Father, please." "I will change, I will." "Enough," he thundered. "You had your chance." Days later, she was taken to Quo village, dressed as a bride. But there was no joy, no celebration. Chief Okik was old, his back bent, his face wrinkled. His 6 other wives barely acknowledged her. As she sat in the cold, unfamiliar hut, she thought of Obina, the man who had truly loved her. Regret tore through her soul, but it was too late. She had lost everything. And so, the once proud princess spent the rest of her days in sorrow, a lesson to all who let vanity and pride destroy what truly matters. True beauty is found in the heart, not in outward appearance. When we reject those who truly care for us in pursuit of status and wealth, we may end up losing everything. Appreciate those who love you for who you are before it's too late. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like to see more tales.